The Creative Habit, Bringing Creativity into Everyday Life, brought to you by West Grey Public Library. Session 4, Permission to be Weird. Where's your will to be weird? Jim Morrison. Weirdness is a creative tension. We have an urge, a primeval urge, to be accepted into society, part of a specific group, so that we'll have a better chance of survival. We get more support, we get more resources, we feel safer. And this applies not only to our basic relationships or friendships, but to business relationships and relationships out in the world, social and political and everything. So the ways that help us survive are also ways that make us conform. And those ways build inhibitions into us. It's a good thing. It helps us. We can be more efficient in decision making. We can feel safe and secure, and from there have a safe platform for exploration. But it can result in a curated version of ourselves. Sometimes that's good. So it's not the same exactly as our different personas around different people. That's sort of a generous act. Acting one way to your grandparents and one way to your friends from college is not only acceptable, but it's a generous trait. It means that you are flexible enough to explore and present different components of yourself, different facets of yourself. And sometimes it's safer. It's certainly more efficient. But if you absorb those integrated versions into yourself, it can twist you. It can affect our sense of who we are. We can lose touch with the things that make us real, make us authentic. It can stop you from acting, and you can hold yourself back. For example, you could see risk where there isn't any risk. You tend to have more focus on fear and aversion. So there's kind of two kinds of weird. One weird is unconventionality, so a weirdness of determination. You're determined to do things differently, to live a different life. You deliberately approach things in an unusual way, sometimes in a contrary way, but often in a healthy, less inhibited way, a way with a sort of flat associative hierarchy is the way it's often termed, which is if I say blue, you don't necessarily say sky. You may say blue berry because that's what you had for breakfast. You might say blue apples because once you saw them, they stuck in your mind. Then there's the other kind of weird, which is your individuality. That's your quirks, your attributes, the things that make you unique. And they're expressed through your personality with things like humor or what you focus on, what you talk about, what you even obsess over. It's the reason sometimes that others give you the hairy eyeball. That's the quirks, and the individuality is what can take you out of the mainstream and away from the norm if you are governed by enthusiasm rather than by social mores. So, hey weirdo, currently society puts a premium on judgment. We have no end of options in terms of gaining other people's opinions about us or anything we're interested in. And we get contradictory messages through not only social media, but mainstream media as well. The message is really be yourself, but, and in most cases it's, but you have to look like this or be like this or act like this or value this in order to have any value. So the corollary to that, of course, is that you'll feel shame over any differences or quirks or ways that you are an outlier. The odd thing is that these social norms right now are both arbitrary and inconsistent. And gone to an extreme, they produce trolls on the internet. But no matter what you do, there will be an opinion. We have a prevalence of talk shows on radio and phone-in shows and opinion pieces and comment sections. So there's no shortage of opinion if you choose to A, seek it out, or B, pay attention to it. We often find that what is weird is usually unfamiliar. So, for example, unfamiliar foods are a common example from culture to culture, from neighborhood to neighborhood even from rural to urban. What some view as totally exotic and peculiar to others is early childhood comfort food. What is weird is also different from person to person, depending on your background, what your experience is, what influences you've been raised with. For some of us, bungee jumping is simply out of any possible realm of experience, while for others, that's a Saturday afternoon. But weird is also often something wonderful. We can look to nature for a less threatening way to look at weird. We see most peculiar and unusual specimens in nature, and we're fascinated by them. We find them beautiful. We find them colorful, interesting. We go out of our way to look at them. We'll sacrifice seeing a robin even for seeing a blue jay, just because it's something less common to some of us. And sometimes things we think are weird for ourselves are wonderful when other people do them. I remember that in our family, I desperately wanted one of our kids to be able to float in a chair tied to balloons. And I was eventually talked out of it because I was told it was just too weird for kids. So, what are some things we can do to make ourselves more comfortable with being weird? Well, first off, for most of us, it is more comfortable to ease into it. Try one or two small things that let your weird out without threatening yourself or others. So let some little quirk rule in some small way. So for example, a different noise for a ringtone or notification on your phone, or changing your phone message so that it's a little bit more you, a little bit less what everyone expects. Another thing to try is to capture 3 weird and wonderful things about yourself. When I say capture, it's important that you write these things down. They work in the adult brain to make changes there rather than in one ear and out the other. So you can record your weird and wonderful things, but even better to write them down. So it could be something you like about yourself. It could be something you don't show strangers. It could be something that you used to do or you used to be interested in that you don't do or you aren't interested in now, but you miss it. So for some people, it could be something as simple as a craft you used to do until other people made fun of it, or a hobby that you pursued until it became non-cool. And write those things down. Just take a look at them and consider them. For jumpstart options, the little bit more intense, try a get fired approach to a problem that you're facing at the workplace or at home. You write the problem, you headline it, so use as few words as possible, the way you would write a headline in a newspaper. And you write it as a how-to capture more mice. Then you write your first solution, buy a mousetrap. Then you exaggerate it and revise it, buy a house for mice. And then you keep going, exaggerating and revising and exaggerating and revising until the solution you come up with is something that is absolutely for sure going to get you fired or get you booted out of the house. That's just a way to start using those muscles, those letting your own impulses and preferences shine through the attitudes and behaviors that you've been taught since birth, pretty much. And the other thing to try is to lose the shame, lose the fear that goes along with trying to be a socially acceptable person. So you identify an opinion or an activity or an interest that you'd like to pursue. I think the one up here in the picture is, not sure what the actual activity is, know that it starts in Wales, obviously has something to do with wading in ditches. And then give 3 reasons why people would judge you. Again, write them down. What would people judge if they saw you wearing goggles and I think a Superman cape in a ditch? And then consider their reasons. Consider the reasons that you've come up with. Now, this is obviously an invention and speculation exercise. That's not such a bad thing, because often that inner censor is what's at work when we don't allow ourselves to show our real sides, when we don't want to look too weird. And ask if it's valid. Are these opinions, are these these censures valid. For deep dive options this week, try for authenticity. So describe yourself, your real self, who you really believe deep down you are. You can try it in any way you wish. You might want to try getting more and more detailed, so starting with a 10-word description, just 10 attributes. Then try 1 page, and then try 750 words. Try 2,500. Write a book about yourself. But the point is to try and dig for yourself. Find who you are under all the people that you become when you try to be acceptable to others. Then figure out who gets you. Identify 3 kindred spirits in your life, past or present, and then figure out why. And again, just write it down. Who gets you and why do they get you? What is it about them that you feel you can connect with? And then just for yourself, identify your secrets. Think of 3 things you would not want someone else to know. Write them down, capture them. You can do it in headline form if it makes you uncomfortable, but capture them somehow. And then think of why. Why are they making you uncomfortable? Is it because they're shameful, or is it because they reveal you? The best way to be authentic, to be weird, is to investigate yourself, to understand yourself. And once you have that clear understanding, or at least partial understanding, it frees you up so that the behavior that you show to others in the world is something that you're more comfortable with, and you're more prepared to allow others to see more facets of yourself. That in turn allow you to speculate and generate ideas, solve problems in a more free and more authentically you way. The next session is creativity exercises for fluency and flexibility. It's great when we can generate ideas, but the more ideas we can generate, we can often find more interesting breakthrough solutions. So that's where we'll head next time. Join us on the library's YouTube channel for the next installment, and please feel free to go and review previous sessions of the Creative Habit. My name is Kim Culkin, and this is West Grey Public Library. Thanks for tuning in.